Hello everybody and welcome to or back to Design Disquisitions, where I examine all things related to intelligent design, evolution, biology and science. First thing I want to say is thanks to those of you who subscribed and commented, gave some feedback. I really appreciate that. I had some interesting interaction in the comments section and on some of the Facebook groups as well. Although unfortunately I did attract one or two trolls, which is to be expected. One of the many delightful perks of venturing into this area. But anyway, in this video and the next video I'm going to be focusing on books. I thought it'd be good to do a couple of book recommendation videos for various reasons. For those of you who are kind of new to this area, it's really difficult to know where to begin because there's been so much that's been written about design and evolution. So hopefully this gives you some good ideas on what to begin with. I've got a few kind of more basic texts and then some more advanced texts as well. So for those of you that are kind of more seasoned in this area, you've probably come across most of these, but there may be one or two that you're not as familiar with. So it might be of interest in that respect. In this video I'm going to be focusing in particular on pro-ID books. Okay, and then in the next video I'm going to be focusing on books that are critical of ID, so that should be interesting. I'll talk a bit more about why I'm doing that in the next video as well. So I'll be interested to hear about other people's suggestions. What are your favourites? What do you think are the strongest books that advance the design position? So you know, do comment and tell me what you think about these some of these books as well. So first up, no surprises here. Michael Behe, Darwin's Black Box, The Biochemical Challenge to Evolution, published in 1996. If you're even vaguely familiar with intelligent design, you'll know who Michael Behe is and you'll be aware of some of his ideas. Very controversial book. It's quite old now, so you know, lots happened since, but Behe continues to update his arguments in some of his more recent books. But there's still a lot in here that's relevant to the discussion today. So it's you know, widely discussed, this book, you know, both pro and con, still referenced a lot. So in this book, you know, Michael Behe identifies certain molecular machines like the bacterial flagellum, systems like the blood clotting cascade, and he argues that these are irreducibly complex systems which are inaccessible to direct Darwinian pathways. So that's his basic argument there. Interesting read. Next up is another book by Behe, which is The Edge of Evolution. This was his second book, published 2007. Subtitle of this is The Search for the Limits of Darwinism. So that gives you an idea. He basically takes a broader view of evolution and looks at the limits, you know, what are the boundaries of evolution and what can be said to be achieved by natural mechanisms. So, you know, he looks at multi-protein machines and complexes that seem inaccessible to evolution. When organisms require two or more coordinated mutations, the probability that these systems evolved by natural means plummets. That's his argument in a nutshell. That's a very inadequate summary, but you get the idea. Next up, William Dembski, who's a philosopher and mathematician, one of the key architects of the ID movement. No free lunch, why specified complexity can't be purchased without intelligence. This is 2002, I believe. So in this, Dempsey kind of he advances a lot of Michael Behe's ideas as well, and he puts forward some of his own ideas, his concepts of specified complexity and information theory. So he looks at how we infer design. He looks at evolutionary algorithms and how they you know, what they say about these systems as well. So he responds to some critics as well here of Michael Behe's work. So very interesting. There's a few chapters that are a bit more technical, a bit more mathematical, but definitely worth a read. So that's No Free Lunch. Next up, this is perhaps not as discussed, this one, but I thought it was a very good book, Darwin Strikes Back, Defending the Science of Intelligent Design by Thomas Woodward. In this book, he basically gives a broader overview of the general debate on intelligent design, and he really kind of documents both sides. He does a good job of responding to a lot of the criticisms as well. So it's quite a small book, but there's a lot of detail in there. This is worth a read. Gives you a good overview of the whole thing anyway. So Darwin Strikes Back. Next up, this is more of a philosophy of science book. Del Ratch, who's a philosopher of science. This isn't specifically about intelligent design, but Del Ratch is a prominent critic of methodological naturalism. He's written a lot of papers as well in this area, and he's written a lot about intelligent design. He's not really a supporter. I think he's more of a friendly critic, but he's open to it. And he proposes his own method of using counterflow marks to detect intelligent design, but I'm not quite sure how much he actually commits to it. But Del Ratch, he kind of he does provide a good background for how intelligent design can fit within a scientific framework. So he's sympathetic to it in that sense. So well worth a read for kind of philosophy of science background. Next up, another book by Dembski, The Design Revolution. You can see this is a very old, worn copy. So this book is basically a response to critics. He basically takes pretty much every criticism you can think of and devotes a small chapter to it. So there's about 40 odd different questions about intelligent design that are raised by critics, and he just basically responds to them. So he goes in a lot of detail on pretty much every area. So this is a really good book to read for finding out what some of the responses are. I think this was published in 2004. Okay, so again quite old, but still very relevant. Design Revolution. Okay, next up, this is an interesting one. Seeking God in Science, An Atheist Defends Intelligent Design by Bradley Monton, who is a philosopher and, funnily enough, an atheist. So a very intriguing book, a very intriguing title as well. And he basically takes the position that intelligent design probably isn't true, but it should be taken seriously. There are quite a few plausible arguments in favour of it, and also that intelligent design should be considered science. Okay, so he criticises things like the Dover ruling, methodological naturalism again, and some of the criticisms that often get thrown at intelligent design. So really interesting book, quite a small book, but again very there's a lot of detail in here. I would say this is this is key book to read. Next up, Stephen Meyer, Signature in the Cell. I think this was 2009, I believe. So Stephen Meyer, he's another architect of intelligent design, philosopher of science. He argues for ID from DNA and the origin of life. So it's a pretty big book, this one, so not quite as small as the other ones. But this is well worth a read. Again, he goes into great detail on loads of different areas. Some of the fine details of DNA and the code, all the codes that we can find in DNA molecule, and at the end as well, he provides some good suggestions for some research projects and predictions of intelligent design. Okay, so definitely a good one to read. Okay, nearly there. Next up is The Design of Life, which is by William Dembski and Jonathan Wells, who's a biologist. I would actually say this is probably one of the best books to read on ID, because it's basically a college level textbook type of thing, but it gives a really detailed, thorough overview of all the different areas that intelligent design touches. So all the things I've mentioned in some of the other books, very detailed, tons of footnotes, and there's actually even though who listens to CDs these days, but there is a CD which contains some supplementary material, some more notes that didn't make it into the book. So Design of Life, I would say, is a real necessary read for this area. So there you go. Finally, and I would say, in some sense, this is the most important thing. And I'm cheating here because I've got a couple of these, but I've got some of my biochemistry textbooks here. This one by Stryan and Berg. This is actually the 5th edition, which is 2002, I think, and it's actually on the 9th edition now. So I do have access to a PDF of the 9th edition, and it is interesting to compare some of the changes. But I would just say the most important thing is just to get familiar with the science. You really need to understand the scientific details that intelligent design touches on. I've got a few other ones here that are kind of just more general biology books, which are handy. A couple of editions there, but yeah, get yourself some textbooks, different textbooks. Really handy as a reference tool, and just to keep up to date with the details of the biology and things like that. It's also, I think it's necessary to keep an eye on, the papers and the most recent research in the journals, because the downside of textbooks, of course, is by the time they've been published, a lot of the material in there needs updating. So it's hard for them to kind of keep up with the changes in science, rapid changes in biology. So yeah, get yourself a few textbooks and pore over those. So there you go. That's 10-ish books. Like I said, this is by no means exhaustive. These are just a few of recommendations. I could have done quite a few more, but this video has gone on long enough now. So like I said, let me know what some of your suggestions are. These days I don't buy that many physical books due to lack of space, so a lot of the more recent ID literature I use on my Kindle, but obviously I can't show you a physical copy there. But yeah, there's a lot more that I could have mentioned. So there you go, 10 or so books in favour of intelligent design. Next video will be 10 or so books not in favour of intelligent design, so you can look forward to that one. So thanks very much, thanks for watching, and I will see you very soon.